Good evening. I want to call to order the regular meeting of the West Contra Costa Transportation Authority, or WestCat, Board of Directors. And this is the May 9th, 2024 meeting. So if we can call, get roll call, please. Oh.
Present.
Cameron Sasai.
Here.
Maureen Tom.
Here.
And Gerald Parson is absent excused.
Okay, thank you. And if you will all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Thank you. So that takes us to approval of the agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes. And then we'll move on to public communications. This is the time for members of the public to bring up with the Board of Directors matters of general interest that are not on the agenda. Are there any public speakers on this item? Okay, we'll move on to then the consent calendar. We have items 1.1 through 1.6. Is there anybody who wants to pull anything? And any speakers on any consent items? Any speakers? Okay. Then we'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion that we approve the consent calendar as is.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, moving along to item number 2.1. This is a proclamation honoring Michael West as MV Transportation National Catherine McClary Operator of the Year Award winner for 2023.
Thank you. So it's not often we get to do a nice presentation like this, and it's a fun item for once. So I'm going to just say a couple of things, then I'm going to ask MV to speak a little bit on the award itself, and then we'll get Mike up to kind of see you all. So I think it's a really great honor that we have a driver who's not only been with WestCat, the WestCat team for 28 years, but is being honoured in this way. You know, it's a really competitive award that this won. It's a one in 12,000 employees that MB have, so they're awarded this annually. So, you know, Mike's been here 28 years. He's the third contract that he's worked with, so he's been around for a long time. He's done fixed routes. You know, there's a lot of people out there in the community know him. He does a lot of the local routes. So I think we had a pretty nice celebration at the yard today. We had some food, and we had a number of the MP people who are here now, but a couple of other people came down from other divisions to kind of honour this award. So I'm going to let Peter, is it you going to speak? So I'm going to let Peter Edwards, the Regional Vice President, speak a little bit.
Good evening. I want to thank you guys for this honor. This is a big deal for us. As you can see, we got a ton of MV representatives here that here to celebrate and honor Mike. Mike is, as you said, 27 years. It's an incredible feat to drive that long, averaging about 100 miles a day without a preventable accident. So I consider myself a super commuter, and I've driven roughly around the same amount of miles in the last 20 years, but the biggest difference is that my miles aren't without an accident, right? So it's a pretty incredible feat that Mike has done here. You have to be intentional in your approach to safety to record that type of record over the period of time. So I want to thank Mike and board and WestCat for allowing us to recognize this achievement and bring him down and get that award.
Did you want to say anything, Mike?
No.
Okay, would you at least join us up front for a photo?
Oh, sure.
Okay, thank you for that. Item 2.2, and that's, oh, did you have anything
Might be
else?
appropriate to actually read the proclamation into the record.
Do you have it in front of you? Or excuse me. Thank you. Okay, we're going to go ahead and read the proclamation. This is appreciating the services of Michael West. Whereas Michael West has served with distinction as a fixed route bus operator for the Western Contra Costa Transit Authority from November 5th, 1995, and whereas Michael began his career at WestCat in 1995 working for Dave Transportation, transitioning to Laidlaw Transit in 1998, and to MV Transportation in 2000. And whereas MV Transportation established the Catherine McClary Operator Award to honor the memory of Catherine McClary, who was tragically killed in a bus accident in 2004, MV's annual award recognizes the safest transit operators at the company. Award recipients are chosen from more than 10,000 MV operators across North America. And whereas MV Transportation has named Michael West the National Catherine McClary Operator of the Year for 2023, and whereas Michael has an impressive 27-year accident-free driving record and is a member of the Pinole Division Local Safety Committee, where he provides suggestions on how to improve safety and overall customer service. And whereas Michael has earned praise from the community he serves, consistently demonstrating a strong commitment to safety as evidenced by his satisfactory ratings in numerous evaluations. Whereas Michael has demonstrated adept vehicle maneuvering recognized by Samsara, further highlights his dedication to safety. Now therefore be it resolved, in honor of Michael being named MV Transportation's National Catherine McClary Operator of the Year for 2023, we express our deepest appreciation in honor of your dedication and years of loyal service to WestCat. So. Okay. So thank you again, and thank you. Apparently, you have some fans in the audience. Looks like coworkers and some members of the community. So good work. Okay. So now we're going to move to item 2.2. This is consideration and approval of Amendment 2 to the Agreement for Public Transit Services between WestCat and MV Transportation to extend the agreement term through June 20th, 2025, and establish a new variable fixed rate. And just for clarification, is it June 20th or June 30th?
June 30th.
June 30th?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. So this is, our current contract with MV does expire on June 30th of 2024. So we have, in the current contract, we have 3 option years. And so this agreement would take into account the first of those option years. That's the main reason for this amendment, that's to do the option year. I think the other notes that need to be mentioned on this are when the first amendment was done back in, I think the board approved it in November. It was related to the drivers' union CBA contract. So there was a reflection at that time that the contract changed, and so the additional labour costs that MV took on under that contract were incorporated into our agreement with MV, into our fixed costs. The way that the dispatchers and road supervisors' salaries are calculated or were calculated at that time meant that when the drivers' wages went up, there was a direct correlation to road supervisors and dispatchers. They went up by a set dollar value at that time. In talking with Peter and MV Transportation over the last few months, when we've looked to bring this amendment to you tonight, I think there was a feeling that the road supervisors and the dispatchers were tied to an agreement that was established, I believe, in 2010, that had this set dollar value kind of done. At the time, a 50 cent difference between the driver and a road super wages was probably probably standard. That was great, but 14, 15 years later, I don't think it really reflects the difference in seniority, the difference in kind of responsibility that dispatchers and road supervisors have. And the example I will use is that when the driver's salary increase went in, we did have road supes and dispatchers wondering whether it was just better for them to go and drive rather than take on that extra responsibility. So in working with MV, they have come up with a set new wage scale that is going to be built into this option year and potential other option years that would reflect changes to the road supervisors and dispatchers on an annual basis at a higher level than just the way the drivers went up, just to put that differential between those wage scales. So it does, obviously, this does result in additional costs to Westcat as part of the contract that we have. So we pay two rates to MB. One is the variable rate, which is the amount we pay for every hour of service we have out on their street, which is in effect the driver's wages plus some other things that are built into that. So under this agreement, that would go up from $59.73 an hour to $61.43, which is a 2.8% increase. And then we also pay a fixed monthly cost, which ties more into the road supes and dispatchers directly into their wages, and that has a 5% increase. It goes from $281,670 $281,670 to $297,332. The price differential is exactly matches what the new road soup and dispatch pay scale plus benefits would be. MV are not taking a cut off the top of this. Every this goes directly to the employees. So, I think we're always grateful when we work with MV and we can do this kind of deal just to reflect changes in, drivers in staff kind of salaries without the need for any additional corporate support or anything like that. So, we're happy to kind of keep this partnership going with MV for another year. We'll talk a little about during the budget, but one of the important things is even though our fixed month of our variable rate, our hourly cost is going up because of the schedule change that actually went into effect last Saturday. We are actually reducing our service hours slightly. So even though the cost per hour is going up, our overall budgetary cost is kind of slightly less on the variable rate. So with that, we're just looking for approval for this amendment, for allow me to sign it and to implement it with MV Transportation for the upcoming fiscal year.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions? Yes, go ahead, board member.
I just got to say that the F&A committee looked at this earlier, and we recommend to move forward, so I'm in agreement with that.
Thank you. Are there any public speakers on this?
No.
Okay, I'll bring it back to the board. Is there a motion?
Move to adopt the addendum 2.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? That motion passes 4-0. Okay, thank you. Item 2.3, this is a presentation and discussion of the third quarter financial data report.
Can you hear me?
I'm not sure if that's on. Can you try
I
again?
don't think it is. There it is.
Okay, thank you. And before you go, can I mark for the record that alternate from Hercules is on the board at the dais?
Good evening. We discussed at our F&A committee meeting this evening that the third quarter here represented in the income statement that you're being presented with tonight is the quarter that we use to adjust the fiscal year 2024 budget. And then we do our assumptions from this quarter for the proposed. So there were just two areas that I had pointed out earlier that are areas that we've been focusing on this year, which were vehicle maintenance and non-vehicle maintenance, primarily parts and materials, other materials and supplies. And those are due to the fact that a lot of the services now that we had contracted out previously to work on our vehicles, to work on our building, are now being done in-house. And this year was the first year where we have had an entire fiscal year to work with that and understand better how to align those expenses with our budget. So you'll see that reflected in the budget discussion this evening. As far as the revenues are concerned, if you do see a deficit, that actually is not anything to be concerned with because it is not reflective of some of the revenues that we have yet to receive or have yet to be allocated. RM3 is one of them, and we fully expect to end with a moderate surplus at the end of the year. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask. That's my presentation.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Any questions on this side? Okay, any public comments? Okay, this was an information item, so thank you.
Thank you.
For that, and then we'll move on to presentation and adoption of the fiscal year 23-24 adjusted operations budget and proposed fiscal year 24-25 capital and operations budget.
Thank you. So I'm just going to share my screen. Okay. Okay, so thank you. So this is the presentation for our adjusted 2023-24 operations budget and our proposed 24-25 operations and capital budget. As Yvonne just explained, we pretty much take our third quarter actual numbers and use that to project out for the remainder of the current year. And then using those numbers, we sit down amongst staff and discuss the upcoming year and kind of come up with assumptions and projections for that. So this year we are looking at a $15.5 million operations budget, which is a 5.5% increase over the previous year. There's a very small amount of $2,000 in our proposed capital budget. That's reflective of the fact that the last couple of years we've had a number of projects approved by the board for capital expenditures. We feel the funding has been allocated to them. We've just not fully completed those projects or drawn all of those funds down. So we're not looking to draw new funding down for some of the ongoing capital needs, and a lot of it is just the maintenance, the facility repair, the facility maintenance. So I think we have a good surplus of capital funds already approved for those items going forward. So we're going to go through just individually. There's the 4 categories that we split our operational budget into. First one is operations. This is directly what we've just been talking about with our contract with MV Transportation. This is where these costs kind of come into this. So even though we have a slight reduction in our variable costs, our fixed cost will go up over the next year. So that plays into this increase. And I think the big increase in this line item is insurance. Insurance is going up. It's we are a member of insurance pool with a number of other transit agencies, and when the budget for that pool was presented 2 or 3 weeks ago, we are looking at across the board around a 10 to 15% increase in insurance costs across the pool of agencies. So the way that comes down to us, we're definitely seeing an increase in our rates for next year. And as we discussed at the F&A committee, the reality is vehicles are getting more expensive, which means insurers are wanting a little bit more kind of premium to, make sure that we've got some skin in the game and they know what they're kind of backing into. So, right now, a lot of our vehicles, if anything happens, and we had to be fully reimbursed for the cost of a vehicle, our insurances cover that because the vehicles are only costing $800,000. But when we look at hydrogen electric vehicles at 1.2, 1.5 million, I believe there's an electric 60-foot vehicle that is $2.2 million. That is so our fully right now the way our insurance works is any vehicle over the most a vehicle can be insured for is $1.2 million. So as we move into that, it's just a preparation that these insurance rates are going to keep increasing as we kind of move forward. Vehicle maintenance, we are showing a 6.3% increase. I think, as Yvonne kind of alluded to, a lot of this is we're trying to just balance out the cost of doing things in-house with our MV labour. So we're only kind of resulting in us paying for parts, basically, instead of sending items out for repair, which results in parts plus labour costs. So we're still, I think, overall between the vehicle maintenance in the operations budget and the vehicle maintenance in the capital budget, it all ties back together. It's just we're trying to make sure we're putting things in the right category to reflect where those costs actually come in. The other part of this is, we're buying parts. We're not just dealing with the supply chain issues. We're dealing with the increased costs that go along with all of these new parts. With vehicles, we also have a number of aging vehicles in our fleet. We are due to receive 6 new 35-foot Gillig vehicles over the next month or so to put them into service. But right now, if a vehicle goes down, we need to get that vehicle back out on the street. So, unfortunately, we are probably putting a little bit of money into parts of these vehicles just to kind of keep them going for the next few months. And then the huge part of this budget is, fuel, lubricants, those kind of items, which historically the board have been really, really conservative of how we've budgeted for them. We've always come in very, very much under budget, like, 30, 40% under budget. I think we're looking in the upcoming year to scale back that conservatism slightly, not eliminate it. I think we still understand that fuel costs fluctuate, fuel costs are going up, but consistently over the last 5-6 years, we've been coming in $600,000-$700,000 under budget in this line item. So I think we've got to do a better job of reflecting what the true costs are. So still being conservative, still putting a cushion in there, but maybe not quite so much as we have in previous years. Non-vehicle maintenance it's a small dollar amount, but it is a 10% increase year on year on the budget. And I think that's mainly reflective in all of the technology we have, all of the ongoing licenses, maintenance agreements we have with various kind of companies, with equipment that we have. They go up annually, and they don't go up by 3%. They go up by various amounts across the board. And again, as we discussed at the F&A committee, and I believe we've mentioned at least once at one of the previous board meetings, we are looking at a new accounting software. The current accounting software we have is old, unreliable, and problematic. And so we are looking to kind of upgrade that in the upcoming year, which obviously it's a newer system, it's a better system, it's an increased cost. So it's just an unfortunate byproduct of what we kind of need to keep doing business. Administration costs have gone up. Again, it's not it's a significant dollar value, but it is a 15% increase. We are anticipating bringing one new employee on board in the upcoming year, and that would be an accounting technician. And again, as we discussed with the F&A committee, we have a finance team in place now with Yvonne, the CFO, and Deborah, who's the finance manager, but the day-to-day, the data input, the bookkeeping element is currently being done by our finance manager, which I think we can have better use of our finance staff with just having that lower level person just to kind of help do the bookkeeping element. So it is a position we've talked about for a while, but I think it's now a position that we're really going to try and fill in the upcoming year. I think the other cost worth mentioning in this line item are legal services. Historically, we've had very little use for our attorney over a long time, a number of years. We did have a pretty significant use of our attorney for various reasons in the last year, so we're kind of keeping that dollar value fairly high. And then we also took on a contract with a lobbyist, a state lobbyist, in conjunction with Tri-Delta, County Connection and LAVDA. So that's an additional expense that we have not anticipated that will be in our kind of future budgets going forward. So they're kind of the main changes to the operations budget. I touched briefly on the capital budget. You can see some previous item funding in previous items that has not all been expended, so that will be kind of rolled into use this year. I'm going to move on to revenues, which on the budget itself is page 5. It's listed as. I think it's. So these are our anticipated revenues for the upcoming fiscal year. Our fare revenue, we're showing a very, very modest increase. I think our ridership has been and remained fairly flat. There's a little bit of an increase, but not a lot. So we're anticipating a small increase in that. And then a lot of our other funding sources are, I would probably describe as being pretty much flat or across the current year to the proposed budget. There's a few ups and downs, but I think overall our main sources, which are TDA, STA, Measure J, are kind of all flat. We did reach out to CCTA for some projections on their Measure J funding for the upcoming year. When I asked a couple of weeks ago, we were told to just anticipate that they would be flat and to no increases. Today I did hear that Measure J revenues are projected to be slightly up next year, but I don't think it's not going to make a huge amount. But it's good to know that they're not anticipated to be down, I guess, is the positive side of that. Other items in there are the RM2 money, RM3 money, which is bridge toll money. RM2 money is a pretty much set amount of money that we've received for a number of years. That's it's a set dollar amount. The RM3 is still a little bit fluctuates as to what we anticipate to receive and what we expect to receive, and that's because while the RM3 money has been flowing to transit agencies for the last 2 years, this is the second year, MTC do not have a long-term plan in place to how that funding is going to be allocated amongst the eligible operators, which obviously Westcott are one of them, and we would anticipate a fairly, if it was based on similar formula to the RM2 money, we would expect a pretty significant amount. But currently, with the way transit funding is within the region, MTC are kind of using RM3 money, SB 125 money from the governor's budget last year to kind of make their money last a little bit longer, move money around to make sure operators are kind of held whole. So we put a projection in there for next year. It's, I'm confident that we will receive at least that amount, but until we get a definite, we could well see some SB 125 funding allocated to us in the upcoming year. It's not included in this budget because I don't have a number. I wouldn't be confident of giving a number to the board to say we could anticipate that amount. The BART feeder bus funds continues to be that is a 25% reduction of where the formula that has been in place for 30 years would give us. So that's a 25% reduction, which was agreed upon reluctantly between operators, BART, and MTC. I could say it was this or we'd be fighting for $0. So it was there was a compromise made between the 4 operators to take this and keep the negotiations ongoing. But I think the important factor in this line is towards the top where it says TDA 4.0 prior year. We are using a pretty significant amount of funding. That is our part of our reserve balance. So that is how we are proposing to balance the budget at this moment in time. At the F&A committee, I'll talk a little bit more about reserves and some of the other elements of the budget, but we did talk at the F&A committee of the need to come back to do a board workshop to look at this fact that we are using reserves to balance the budget. It's not a sustainable ongoing thing. It's unfortunate. It's a reality of most transit agencies right now because of the unknown fiscal cliff, the unknown about the regional measure, and BART's fiscal cliff, how that plays into it. So there's a lot of moving parts right now. So I think it's a definite commitment from staff that I think we talked about within the first quarter we would have a workshop to look at service levels and to look at other overall costs, how we deploy service, and this fact that our reserves, again, we'll talk a little about reserves. This does not eliminate our reserves. We still have reserves in hand, but it's not a sustainable operational method. So it's something that we need to come back in a workshop setting with the board and sit down and kind of have a more in-depth discussion on that. But just to carry on going through a couple of other items on the budget, I think the next page is just the capital program. As you can see, there's not a lot. There's very little dollars in the current year. There's very little dollars proposed in the next year, just because we don't believe our hydrogen modernisation project would start until 2027. So that's kind of when we anticipate a lot of those costs kind of being brought into the budget. We have vehicles on order now. There's a potential that we'll be coming back to the board for 3 additional over-the-road coaches that the board have already actually approved for us to replace, but we need to go through the formal process of the budgetary elements for that, which I do not believe will place any further financial burden on our reserves at this point, but we'll hopefully bring that back to the board next month to discuss that item. The next set of graphs are all just individual capital programs that we have in place over the last couple of years. I'm not going to go through them. Happy to answer any questions if anyone has anything. So I'm going to move forward to page 13, which this is our operational kind of forecast over the upcoming years. Again, the highlighted kind of line item does show where that is our reserve. So, as you can see, our potential projections for 2026 and 2027 would eliminate our entire reserve budget. So I think that's why we need to have that conversation first quarter, because we need to make some structural changes towards how we're kind of doing business. It's really difficult to, with a caveat to that, is it's really difficult to project revenue sources in the upcoming years. I think there's a number of times where we've done a either really conservative 2.75% increase, or we've gone flat, because there's just no real way of knowing at this point how to really predict that, other than I think we're sometimes grateful we have projections that we can rely on for the upcoming year, never mind kind of going out into future years. So, and then the last page is more of just a highlight of the actual of our reserves. So I think the line item to look at is the proposed FY 2025. On July 1st, I do anticipate our reserve balance will be $9.7 million, give or take. Then if you go down that the TDA 4-point allocation is the amount of funding we expect to receive this year. Then a note of how much we anticipate to use of our TDA funding for operations, which would leave a ending TDA balance of a little over $8 million. But included in that are the vehicle purchases that the board have previously approved, which is the $3.1 million of local funds. And then the $730,000 is what I mentioned earlier, the previous capital budgets that the board have approved that we've been allocated. We just have not drawn all those funds down. So I think in terms of how the board should look at our reserves, those are encumbered money. You know, they're kind of accounted for. They can be changed. That you know, any of these money can be changed. But right now, that $3.8 million is in board approved, set aside for out of our reserves. So you know, if you just look at the outgoing years, you know, you see that 2027, that's when all of those reserves would be kind of reduced. So kind of that's where we are with our operating budget. I'm happy to go over any additional details, but we are looking for approval for the adjusted budget, the upcoming year budget. Again, I'm happy to add with the caveat that we can certainly ensure within in the motion that, you know, we will come back for a board workshop to discuss all of these items in more detail.
Thank you for that report, and I'll note again that the F&A committee met earlier before this meeting and recommended approval of the budget. But with that, are there any questions? Yes, board member.
Thank you. First, I want to apologize to everyone for my tardiness to this meeting this evening. Secondly, I know the priorities of WestCat include the best possible service to its customer base and the quality of work environment and work conditions for its employees. So can you speak to any current or future practical impact because of the budget fluctuations?
Sure. I think, I mean, it's a good point. It's something I was going to talk a little about in my general manager's report, but we did just implement a service change. Well, maybe to step back, because you were not here for some of the earlier discussion, you know, the board did just approve an extension to our agreement with MV Transportation, which does reflect a increase in salary for road soups and dispatchers. So I mean, I think it's been an ongoing need for us to make that kind of change, and so I think that has been noted. But that then comes out of our bottom line, so that, you know, it does have a potential impact on service as we move forward. We did just implement a service change, which resulted in a reduction in our hours that we pay MV for. And when I say that, I'm being careful because there's two things. There's service hours, there's the amount of service we have on the street, and then there's the billed hours that we get from MV, which is from when a bus leaves the yard to when a bus gets back. So that includes layover time, that includes, you know, getting to and from. So there's a lot of that. So the reduction of the schedule that we just made there were some minor changes to the current schedule out there on the street. Most of the impact was to drivers' layover. So when a driver gets to the end of their run, the previous schedule had a lot of unproductive time in it. You know, it could be they would do one of the loops in Hercules, which is a 20-minute loop, and then they have a 15-minute break at the end of that, and they could do that over and over again throughout the day. So, you know, there were routes where we were paying for as much layover service as we were for actual service. So I say that because the result was we went from billed hours, 96,000 hours as of last week, to the service change that went into effect on Saturday is 89,000, which did result in MB having to downsize some of their drivers. The reality is that I believe all but one driver did move to another location. So one driver, they were all offered the chance to move to other MB locations, San Leandro, Fairfield, Burlingame. There was another one where someone went. So and the majority of them went to San Leandro, but one driver chose not to. So that is a reality of, you know, these kind of decisions, that it does have an impact on our operations staff. It does have an impact on all of those things as we kind of make those decisions. And I think that's a really valid point when we have the discussion at the board meeting as to what these service levels actually mean to our, the Westcat and the MV employees. So.
Thank you. Any other questions? None? Okay, are there any public comments? Okay, well, bringing it back to the board yes, go ahead.
Just one comment. I want to thank staff for the report, both parts, the adjustment to the current fiscal year and then the preliminary for next year, and then for reminding the board about the TDA fund issue as it's coming up. I think the workshop's a great idea for us to try and figure out a solution for that. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion? And this, the action is to, let's see, formal adoption of the adjusted fiscal year 23-24 budget and the proposed 24-25 operations and capital budget.
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Abstentions? That motion passes 5-0. Thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda is 2.5, and this is consideration and adoption of Resolution 2024-02, authorizing the filing of an application with the Metropolitan Transportation Commission for an allocation of Transportation Development Act / State Transit Assistance / Net Bridge Toll Revenues / Feeder Bus Funds / Regional Measure 2 Operating Funds and Regional 3 Operating Funds for fiscal year 24-25.
I think the staff report's going to be shorter than the description. So this is just a byproduct of the approval of the budget. This just allows us to actually present the budget to MTC and to apply for all of these different funding types. So, our attorney signs an opinion of council to this effect, and then the board just needs to do this. It's just an annual resolution that we need to do. It's pretty much part of the budget process.
Great, thank you. Any questions of staff? Okay, any public comments?
No.
Okay, I'll bring it back to the board.
So I'll make a motion to do what you just said.
Okay, and is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? That passes 5-0. Moving right along, item 2.6. This is consideration and adoption of Resolution 2024-03, and this is the West Contra Costa Transportation Authority Workplace Violence Prevention Plan.
Thank you. So this is I think Senator Cortese had a Senate Bill 553 in the last year that put this new requirement into place for all businesses to have a workplace violence plan. So we actually have to have a separate one than MV Transportation, even though we're located within the same facility. So in working with our employment liabilities practice insurer, they developed a template that I know that both of the City of Hercules and Panola are members of the same pool, so you may well have a very similar template when you come to adopt it. But working with them, they produced a template that we have done, adapted for our facility. So we're just looking to have this approved by the board. And, I think the main part of it is there's training elements, which again are being provided through our employment insurance liability. So that's the kind of the main element. So we'll be looking to remain in compliance with the training requirements, but then, having this plan in place is,
Okay, great.
the next step.
Thank you. Thank you for that report. Are there any questions of staff? Okay, any public comments?
No public comments, no.
Okay, we'll bring it back to the board for any closing remarks or a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, we have a motion.
Yeah, the motion that we adopt the resolution 2024-03.
Okay. We have a
Second.
and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion passes 5-0. Thank you. So 2.7, State Legislative Advocacy Update.
Thank you. So I'm sure it's no surprise that this is going to concentrate on Senate Bill 1031, which is Scott Wiener's kind of proposal to help put a regional measure on the ballot for the Bay Area. It contains a lot of other elements. We talked quite a lot about this at the last meeting. It's still a very, very fluid bill, and I'll kind of go through where it is now and some of the concerns that we still have. But I think I'm going to start by kind of putting this out there as a question to think about as we discuss this. A number of transit agencies have taken a direct position on this bill. VTA, Samtrans, Caltrain, Tri-Delta and LAVTA have all taken oppose unless amend positions on this bill. As far as I'm aware, certainly in any of the records I've looked at back to around 2000, Westcat has never taken an official position on a bill. So I think that it's entirely up to the board if they wish to do that. It's not something I'm recommending, but it's certainly not something I'm opposing if the board wish to do that. So I think the question is, do the board wish to take an official position, or do you wish to direct staff to continue as we are doing, working with our lobbyists to kind of advocate for our needs and what we see as part of our coalition with Tri-Delta County Connection? And one of the reasons is that our lobbyist is putting together a letter that we will be submitting that does have some potential amendments in there that Tri-Delta and LAVTA have crafted because their boards have taken that official position and they've given their staff direction to, do certain parameters. County Connection are only taking a watch position on the bill. So it's how we craft that letter that we're all kind of in agreement with the content, but who's taking an actual position versus who's just working on a staff level to kind of make sure that we're kind of at the table. I think it's also worth mentioning that AC Transit have only taken a watch position on this bill at the moment. I believe BART have supported it, and most of the other counties have either taken a watch position or I think it's Sonoma County have taken an oppose unless amend position at this point. So you may recall there's been a lot kind of happening in the last month with this bill. It did go through the Senate Transportation Committee, which is chaired by Senator Cortese, and he put on a number of, what came out of that meeting was what they call a term sheet, which was potential amendments that he wanted to see as be incorporated into the bill, given that he would support it at the Transportation Committee. He was like, the only way I'll support this if this is done to it. But we haven't seen those amendments in writing yet, so it's a little hard to know how they'll be crafted after the fact. A very similar thing happened at the Revenue and Taxation Committee the following day, which is chaired by Senator Glazer. He kind of was pretty adamant that the only way he was supporting this bill is if it changed significantly, but he wasn't prepared to stop the bill there and then. It was, allowing it to go through the process. So the next step for the bill is it goes to the Senate Appropriations Committee, and then it has to pass the vote on the Senate floor by May 24th. So we're expecting to see potential amendments, written amendments to the bill in the next week or so. I mean, it's really not a lot of time to react to some of these things, but just the intel we get from our lobbyists and the teams that we're working for, we fully anticipate this will pass the Senate vote and we'll move on to the Assembly. And that's where we all believe that there's a lot more opportunity for significant changes to be made. To that end, we do have a meeting already set up with Assembly Member Laurie Wilson, because she's the chair of the Transportation Committee. She is very much aligned. She has spoken a lot with Rashidi Barnes, the general manager of Tri-Delta, because that's the main service area. So there's been a lot of discussions already on that level, and I think she certainly understands a lot of our concerns. We have calendar invites out to Assembly Member Buffy Wicks, Tim Grayson, and there's another one that LAVTA areas that we're trying to schedule for the same time, just to make sure that we're kind of touching all those bases. But what's coming out of the Senate is certainly more palatable than it was a month ago. That there have been some changes that still, I don't think any of the transit agencies who took and oppose unless amend are prepared to change that position right now based on what they know. But it has come quite a long way. We had a meeting yesterday with all of the small operators, general managers, and MTC staff were there, and we're honest. The MTC Commission has a lot of concerns. There's a discussion at the MTC Ledge Committee tomorrow. There was a MTC workshop a couple of weeks ago where, they did, they talked in public about potentially withdrawing their sponsorship of the bill because some of the commissioners don't clearly like where it's going. They talked about, maybe completely rechanging the scope of the bill, and not really sure what that means, but potentially making it a 5-county BART-only bill. So there's just a lot of unknowns out there as to how we're doing this. MTC staff basically, were honest yesterday and said, they are having conversations with the operators. They're also having direct conversations with Senator Wiener, Senator Wahab, Senator Cortese, and the Mayor Pro Tem, the Senate Pro Tem, because they're the ones that are kind of really crafting the bill. There's a lot of discussion within senators, and there's also a lot of discussions between Senator Wiener, Wahab, and the advocates out there. So we don't know how a lot of those conversations are happening. There's a lot behind closed doors. Some of the initial proposals or amendments that MTC offered, some of them got included, some of them didn't, some of them got watered down. So it's still a lot of unknowns, kind of what's out there and what's going to actually come out of that. But I think there's 4 key issues that are still there. Oh, first of all, there's a couple of issues that have gone away. One of the issues that's gone away was the maintenance of effort, which basically would have meant that if Measure J was not renewed, we, the individual transit agency, would for some reason be held responsible financially for those funding. That's gone away, so that's been removed. So that's definitely a good thing. Another really big concession that MTC have made, they have taken out they were requesting authority over all of the TDA, the Transportation Development Act funds that we receive. So that would then, instead of it being a local return to source by transit operator, they wanted it to be a regional funding source so they could have direct control over all of those revenues, which would basically, I think all of the small operators, that's the majority of our that's a money of our finances. That's a huge part of our budget. So they have backed away from that. They do still want to maintain control over our SCA funds, which they do to some extent now, but I think there's some deliberation on how much of that, because right now, while they control the population-based elements of state transit assistance funds, STA funds, they don't currently control the revenue portion of that, and this bill would potentially give them control over that. It's not a huge amount of funding to us, but it's still enough for us to be, certainly aware of that kind of request from MTC. There's still the language that all of this requirements on MTC authority would go into effect as soon as the bill passes, regardless of if the measure passes. That's still a concern. I think some of the other issues, where the bill still talks about creating a brand new structure within MTC to oversee transit agencies, and we feel that that's already been in place with the regional network management system that we've all worked for the last 4 years and agreed on across the region to put in place. So we're trying to, that's one of the key issues, to kind of just keep that in place and give it a chance to work through the system. Return to source is still a huge concern, certainly a huge concern for all of the counties. The way that the proposed funding formula is written, and this is not written in the bill, this is just kind of MTC's, how they think that they would do their expenditure plan. The return to source to counties is an issue, but the way that they're splitting it is that Contra Costa County would see basically $10 million to be split between the 3 transit operators. The rest of the funding would all go to BART and AC Transit. And that's kind of how it's visioned. So $10 million for the split between us, County Connection, and Tri-Delta is not a lot of revenue funding, especially as the MTC, and this has not been put in writing, but this has definitely come from high up staff level at MTC. They would envision that $10 million would basically supersede the BART feeder bus funds. So, so the new money to the transit agencies in Contra Costa would be around $1.5 million split between, the three operators. So that's not really any additional funding from this measure. So that's obviously, we're still working on that kind of thing. And then the consolidation element has, again, been dampened down quite a lot. I think there's been a lot of work done with, particularly with Caltrain and Samtrans, working with Senator Wahab and her staff, and maybe using the word enhanced coordination rather than consolidation. And I think there's some concessions, and I don't think it's concessions. I think there's a general agreement that as a small agency, we'd probably benefit from some coordinate or enhanced coordination of our procurement processes. Of our, there's various things that I think larger operators can help with, or we can work as a consortium of smaller operators to kind of to do that. So I think we're in conversation about that, but it's still there in the bill. It's still something that we need to kind of be aware of, and it's still something we're still talking to Assembly members and senators about when we come up, because it is still a concern that what that means. There's still the study is still in the bill, which is the unfunded study, and it's still the outcome of the study will still be implemented. So there's still those kind of predetermined outcomes already in place for a very expensive study that has actually no funding set aside to produce it. So still very much a work in progress. I mean, I think the last thing I wrote, it's very complex. I mean, it really is a lot, but there's a lot of really moving parts. So, we're meeting weekly with our lobbyists. That's it via Zoom, but there's back and forth pretty much every day between the four operators, and kind of LAVTA took their position from their board on Monday night. That's when they took it. County Connection have got another ledge committee coming up, so there's an evolving kind of discussion going on. But happy to answer any questions. But I think the question tonight before the board is, would you like to take a formal position, which would involve me, sending a letter directly to the senators, involved, or through our lobbyist, or just to direct staff to kind of continue as we're doing, working with the lobbyist and kind of just through that process. So it's kind of happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for that report. Just curious if WestCat or CCTA have taken a position on this?
I believe CCTA
seeing-
well, I think they've unofficially took a watch position.
Okay.
So I know it came up, so yeah.
And then I was looking to see if I recognized any members of Cal City's transportation policy committee. I'm not sure if they've taken a position on that, but that's something to keep in mind. They're going to meet again in probably the third week in June, so we can follow
Sure.
their action. And I would just suggest, we can't give any direction today because it's not on the agenda, but I'm wondering if we should ask you to put it on the agenda in such a way that if we needed to take
Sure.
action, then we don't have to wait a whole meeting cycle to take that. Anybody have any questions? Yes, Dion.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask if we can get the board to have an opinion on it, just because I think the timing is of the essence. And I think I heard that 3 of the other 4 agencies have taken 2 of the agencies. So I think I heard Contra Costa has not, so County Connection has not. Sounds like Tri-Delta has,
Yes.
and they're working closely with their assembly member.
Yes.
And
Oh,
then LAFCO has.
LAVTA,
LAFTA, excuse me,
Yeah, sorry,
LAFCO
they
is
took the
County
position
Fire.
on Monday.
Okay.
And so they were, again, this just speaks to, LAVTA have a official legislative committee and policy that their board adopted, and one of their legislative policies for the year was that they would oppose any consolidation effort. So they were by default had to take an opposed position to this bill.
Thank you. For the board, my concern is that we don't have really an alternative, because if we take one and they get mad at us and do something different, we still end up in the same place, which is we don't have funding to operate. So I think that it's a time to stand up. I mean, we have a consultant that's helping us,
Yes.
so of course we want to consult with them. We don't want to do the opposite of
Yes.
what we're paying someone to ask us, to inform us to do. But I think that waiting for CCTA or something like that, they'll still be in business if this happens, right? We're the ones that'll be affected. It's just my thoughts.
I'm sorry, just not to go back, but Director Powers, you could actually direct me to take an oppose. If you so wish, you could direct me to inform the senators, to inform whoever that the Westcat board had an oppose unless amend position on this bill. That is, it's not directly in this, but that could be your direction to staff.
Okay, thank you. Is, any more questions? Yes.
Well, I just have a thought. I don't think there's any danger of going opposed.
Not at this
Because
point. No.
It's nobody that really directly affects us that's carrying the bill, but it could be an indication to the people you're going to meet with, the assembly members, that your board has directed you to oppose, where you can say that the board is opposed to it, where instead of we're still watching. And you could actually have a stronger position when you meet with our electeds, state electeds, about your position and the position of the board and the support that we would like them to give us when they go back.
If I can note, the recommendation that we get in the Cal Cities Policy Committee is to do something that's like oppose unless amended, because that indicates that you're
Yes,
willing to discuss. And if we just straight out oppose, then, we're done. They don't even need to talk to us.
So, I mean, again, so all of the trans, that's the exact position they've taken, oppose unless amend.
Okay.
That's the official position that they others take.
Okay, yes, Director Sisson.
For the transit agencies that have taken this oppose unless amended position, can you speak to the amendments that they're proposing? Is it similar to what MTC is sort of asking?
Well, I think it's basically those key issues that I went through. So I don't have the language, but it's around removing the consolidation language. It's around codifying the current regional network management structure. It's a clarification on or maximising the return to source funding. I think that one's a little bit more county based. I think the specific amendment from that I know Tri-Delta are crafting is a specific amount for small individual agencies, not a collective county amount. And then I think I think they're the three main ones that are kind of under the amendments. I know Samtrans and Samtrans and Caltrain have been working, I think I mentioned directly with Senator Wahab on amendments, and I've seen a draft of what they've done. I couldn't share exactly all of the language because it's still much a work in progress, but it's very much around that enhanced coordination language rather than consolidation.
And in terms of timeline, when is your next scheduled board meeting, and what is the sort of timeline for this to get out of Assembly?
So to get out of the Senate, it's May 24th, and then I think I know when the governor has to sign it.
What date does it switch houses?
It would be May 24th.
May 20th. Okay. And so is there room for us to?
So let me give you the exact. So August, it was actually quite a lot of time. So August 16th is when it would have to have passed the Assembly Appropriations Committee. Then August 31st, it would have to pass the Assembly floor.
So there is time for us to schedule this in our next board meeting for the discussion.
Yes.
Is there any way that you can provide the list of support opposition
Sure.
for the bill and backgrounder if that's available as well?
And I can also, our lobbyist is also more than happy to come and attend a meeting and, give more direct.
That'd be great.
We can definitely arrange that.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? And any public comments on this? No. Okay, seeing none, I'll bring it back. We have heard two possibilities, and that's one, to agendize it and bring the lobbyist in to, give us some additional details. And that would be our June meeting.
Yes.
Would this be the only item on the agenda since we're doing the budget already?
I think I think the only other item would potentially be a authorization for a vehicle purchase. That would probably be the
Okay.
only other item. But I think it's certainly an important enough item that it would be something that we'd still want to have, even if it was the only item on the agenda. I think we would still want to have a meeting.
Be
to
a good
discuss it.
discussion.
Yes, for sure.
Okay. Is there any direction you'd like to give? Yes.
Yeah, I would like to just go, I mean, I think we believe our general manager is, what the consultant's telling our general manager is what he's telling us, so I'd like the board to at least vote, or at least say why we don't want to vote on for tonight, to oppose unless amended language, because I think it's in line with the other guys are doing, and this is, we're kind of, this is important to us, I
Okay.
think.
And that's a motion?
That'd be my motion, yes.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second?
Okay. So this would be to give direction to the general manager to communicate that we are opposed unless amended on this bill. Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Still thinking?
Abstain, and I can explain.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay, and that's 4-0-1. Okay, do
Yeah.
you want to,
No, I appreciate the motion and the thoughts on timeliness as well. I just felt like I need more time to read about the proposed amendments that folks are asking for, and all good. Thank you.
thank you. All right, with that, you've got direction. And then I'd like to move to the next item, which is 2.8, and that's discussion regarding start time of the board meeting. We currently start at 6:30, and I think there have in the past been discussions going earlier, going later. So I'm interested in hearing what,
So I think we did bring this to the last board meeting, but I think the consensus was we didn't have enough board members here to have a full discussion. So, I think it's just a question of the board of, what's the preference. I mean, it came up as a question by Director Parsons, who's not here tonight, is to move it. But, I don't think staff have an opinion either way. This time works, and earlier time would work. So it's
Yeah.
completely up to the board.
and I know that some folks do have trouble getting here because they commute. I'm flexible. I think whatever we decide, we do need to check it with the TV crew.
So we do. So we did. So I mean, I think when I say staff, I think our staff, the city of Brunel, everyone was okay with a potential time change.
Good, good. So those that do have trouble with 6:30, yeah,
So I do work in Berkeley. I work for UC Berkeley, and so commuting to and from Berkeley on a Thursday Thursday's probably the highest traffic rate of any day of the week. So it's very difficult for me to get here, as you saw tonight, even by 6:30. So, but if it were the position of the majority of board members, then I do have the flexibility to change my in-office days, and I would be willing to make an effort to change my in-office days so that I'm not working on the Thursdays that we have board meetings. But just want to note that with my current schedule, it is virtually impossible to get here by 6.
okay. 6:30, you mean?
6:30, sorry.
Yeah. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, if I may. Do you remember the request of Director Parsons? Was it for earlier start or a later start, or what was?
It was for a 6 o'clock start.
For a 6 o'clock start. Okay.
I mean, just historically, we used to meet at 6 o'clock until, I don't know, 2014, 2015, and we changed it for the exact reasons that Director Grimsley just said. We had 2 or 3 board members at that time who really were struggling to get here for 6 o'clock.
Thursdays are tough for me. Most Thursdays I don't end work until exactly 6 p.m. So I would be in favor of moving to 7 if I'm honest with you, but 6:30 right now can work for me
Okay.
currently.
Other folks?
I support the 6:30 time. I think it also works well for those when the F&A committee does meet. It allows some time in between, otherwise the meeting at 5 o'clock or 4:30.
Yep.
I know we rotate who's on that, but that would be a problem for me if we did that, so
Okay.
that's my opinion on it.
All right. 6:30, 6:30, 6:30.
We will keep the meeting at 6:30.
6:30, and
Thank you.
maybe you can think about changing your at-home day. but 6:30 works for you, Director Sasai?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you. So there's direction, and then, thank you for that. We'll move on to committee reports, General Manager's report.
I don't think I have anything in addition. I think we talked a little bit about the schedule change. That was the main topic, and
Yeah,
I
nothing's
think,
left.
yeah, I think that was it. So
Okay.
I have nothing else.
WIC Tech,
So in keeping with this, has been a long meeting, I'll just briefly mention that we had the transportation expenditure plan discussion, and that's kind of ongoing still about how that's going to fish out all the way. And West Contra Costa High Capacities Transit Study discussed some workshops that they've done, so that's the WIC Tech report.
okay, great. Next is correspondence, and we have none. Board communication and items for a future meeting. I actually have something, board communication. And through my day job, I witnessed 3 WestCat employees doing outstanding work, and I wanted to share that with the board. That's Finn, who is here, Finn Wirtz, Chantel Samuels, and Denise Williams. And where I observed this work was that the County Office of Emergency Services does a functional exercise. They try to do it every year. And the simulation for this exercise was a 7.1 earthquake centered out in the bay just off of Pinole Hercules Rodeo area. So with that, this was a 2-day exercise, and folks report to address how they're going to respond. And WestCat showed up. They staffed the logistics section and were given injects of people thinking that they were that they should evacuate their homes to, say, I think it was the senior center. And then, you know, these are folks that may or may not be able to drive. And again, I have to inject in case somebody turns on the TV and thinks there's something going on. This was an exercise. But the transit agencies staffed the logistics section, and that's the section that, you know, arranges with Red Cross to do shelters, the transit agencies to do transportation, like they did during COVID. They did that. And at the end of the day, I participated in the first day, and I think the WestCat staff participated both days. But when they did a review at the end of the day, wrapping everything up, the logistics chief pointed to the staff of the transit agencies that were in the house and just really talked about what an exemplary job they did. So I wanted at least the board to know that, and, you know, and the community to know that. Okay, anybody else have any board communication?
I know you've been long. I just want to say, if I could, just great. I think ICS is very important. It's what I do at my day job. And then to staff that put the reports together, the budget has, I won't say it's gotten better. It's just easier for me, who's not a finance person, to read over the last couple of years. I think Rob made that a focus when he was in the House, and then staff beneath, you know, staff, everybody works together, right, to make this work. But the whole packet is better. So whoever's doing it, I want to say thank you very much. It's just easier to read and can plow through it. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. And any others? Okay, any future items for the board? Seeing none, we are going to adjourn at 7:44, 7:44 p.m. Thank you.
It's on the website.
Oh, they did put it on the website.
Because I saw